I was born 11 years after my grandfather died, so I didn't really ever know him. There are some cousins here who did know. I thought I would name the talk His Story and His Stories. As we go on, you'll see why I decided on that. Seymore, my grandfather, was born on April 21st, 1867, and died the same hour of his birth on April 21st, 1945, his 78th birthday. He termed himself the man with the radio mind. Let me describe a little bit about the way people describe the way Seymore did when you came to him. When you came to him with a problem, he would close his eyes, put his hand half over his eyes, and say, "I see, I see." He never called names in any of his stories. He would just describe the person, the place, the thing, and what it looked like in color. So he gave colors. And I've got some stories to tell, but there's a couple of people here that before I tell my story, I want them to tell their story. First, Mr. Lindsay. I want him to tell his story.
Oh, I'm Jimmy Lindsay, raised over in Myrtle. I've heard many stories, and most of them come from an uncle I had by marriage. Uncle lived over a few miles out of Pontotoc in the farm, and he was a natural born storyteller. He embellished things a little bit. But I remember as a young boy, he would tell stories about Mr. Prater. He always said that Mr. Prater saved him from losing the crop till his retirement, because he farmed with mules and horses, and his horses were bad to get out, and he couldn't find them and he couldn't plow. But he knew about Mr. Prater, and Mr. Prater told him where his mule was several times. Uncle said his mule was the highest jumper that they was in the country. He couldn't keep them in. And Mr. Prater would tell him where he thought his mule was. But he also told him, said he might have a neighbor that was leaving the gate down. But the story that fascinated me so much, after I got grown, I'd act like I forgot the story to get my uncle to tell me again. They was a family that lived in his community, pretty religious people. Go to church every time we was over there. Didn't have a car, but they had a wagon. And even on Wednesdays, they would come out of the field in time to clean up and hook up that wagon and go to church. This family, there was a daughter. Uncle says she's about 15 and a beautiful girl. They went to church on one Wednesday and got ready to go home. They couldn't find her. Looked everywhere. People got their lanterns out, looked all night, looked the next day, and on Friday, they was getting my word about it. Uncle told him that in the morning they'd start real early. Uncle had a month, so it must have been in the early 30s or late 20s. They left home early. Back in them days, when Boone was Pontotoc, it was all gravel road. Not much gravel, I don't think it had. It was a pretty good trip. Well, they got down Mr. Prater's, and there were several people in the yard waiting to talk to him. And this father of the girl finally got to ask Mr. Prater, could he have him? Mr. Prater told him something. But the man described the circumstances. Said Mr. Prater said he would put his hands up, stroke his brow, said he'd take 2 or 3 steps, walk around a little bit, and he told this fella, he said, I don't get anything. He says, can't say anything. He said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I said, I don't know where your daughter is. And this other guy was the father. He was counting on Mr. Prater telling him where his daughter was. And Mr. Prater turned and walked off. When he told him, said, I don't see anything, can't hit. Said he took 2 or 3 steps and turned, come back, he said, but said, I can tell you one thing. He said, I can tell you the name of the man that done the ceremony.
This is Curtis Newman, and that's my dad. It's probably not their daughters.
And my uncle, well, not too long before he died, I always loved to hear him tell it, because he'd tell about the trip, but he died. He tried to figure out, Mr. Prater, why he had that guilt. And sometimes he got where people didn't want to see him coming because they knew that's all he was. He never did figure out Mr. Prater.
It's a great story. This is when they were little Catholic. Grandmother, Rachel. You tell your mother. No, it'll be here. Here, you can have this and you sit back now.
Oh, that's all right. My grandfather lost a ham. Of course, he kept it in the smokehouse, and so he found out one was missing. So he said, well, I'm going to go see Seymore Prater. So he did, and Mr. Prater told him where it was. So they sent the police for it, and they got it, and they had court over it. And Baxter Knox was my grandfather's lawyer, and Q Clayton was the other guy's lawyer. So finally, after a day or 2 went on, Baxter said, Mr. Barkley, how do you know this is your ham? And so he slowly went in his pocket, got out a knife, and went directly into the ham and pulled out a tack. He said, you've made me tell my mark. So it was the ham.
Anybody else got a story?